Okay, now in this short video we will see how to install our old good friend Rstudio that will help us to write code in R. So Rstudio is an IDE for us to write some code, but now the name of Rstudio has changed actually. I just realized that today, and it's called POSIT. Okay, now if we go to Google and we click here, we read that actually from July last year that we're very excited to announce that Rstudio has a new name, POSIT. Probably they want to disassociate the IDE from R and make it something more general, and that's why they put the new name POSIT. Anyway, we can go to this, click to this button here, download Rstudio, not POSIT, but Rstudio, and then we can download either the Rstudio Desktop or the Rstudio server. So for our personal computers, we can download Rstudio Desktop. However, if you have a computer that is accessible via internet, for example, you have some server running on it, then you can use, and has a and this computer has also a stable IP. Sorry, it has a stable IP. Then you can use Rstudio server in order to be able to access Rstudio from the browser, from the web browser. Okay, in any case, we will download Rstudio Desktop. So here we are. And we have to follow the steps that are written here. The first step is to install R. I have installed R in my computer, so it's fine. Then install Rstudio, and then here we have the different versions. So in this machine I have a Debian 11, so I go for this one. I have to save it somewhere, and I'm waiting for it to download. Okay, we have downloaded Rstudio. It's quite large, 126 megabyte, and now we can install it using, this depends on the Linux distribution that we have, but since I have Debian, I will use this command. Let's wait for a while. So the system asks different questions during installation. Okay, we don't have to change anything. Okay. Now if you use Windows, of course you should go here and download the appropriate version, which is this one. But as we will say probably in the class or in some other video, I really recommend using Linux to handle biological data. It's much more comfortable, as we will see. Okay, installation is complete now, and now we can open Rstudio. Since it is in the system, so it's here. Let's see. Okay. Now this is the Rstudio. But since I want to demonstrate also the Rstudio server that I will use in the class, I will leave this the Rstudio Desktop, and I will pass on the Rstudio server. It's exactly the same, just to show you, if you wish to install or if you find an online server that runs Rstudio, how to use it. By the way, there is a publicly available RStudio server, and we have access to that if we write RStudio Cloud. So here on the browser, I think we can log in with our Google credentials. Okay, here it's called POSIT already, not RStudio any longer. And maybe I have opened something about I chose to restore some old project here. Doesn't really matter. We can it loaded my old whatever I was doing space, but I think perhaps a better idea to go to the workspace. You can create your own workspace and then go to a new project, and you have a new RStudio project. As far as I see, it has also a new Jupyter project and so on. Let's go for R, and then it will load everything that needs to be loaded. So this is the RStudio in this cloud. It's exactly the same or very similar to the Rstudio Desktop that we have here. Now this the RStudio is split in actually 4 parts. Now we see 3 of them. Later on I will show you how to see the 4th part. On the left you see the R console. So you can type commands here. For example, 1 + 1, and will give us the result 2. So we can use R as a normal calculator. SQRT of 9 is 3, log of 10 is 2.3, but log of 10 with base 10 is 1, and then we have -infinite as a number, and so on. We have different things that I will talk to you about during the class. So 1 divided by 0, for example, is infinite. -1 divided by 0 is -infinite, and so on. So R knows about infinite, treats infinite with a special way, and knows about numbers, and all the values here that you see. When this one is not an integer, we must explicitly say that this number is an integer. All these are numeric values that we have here. So on the left hand side here we see the console. On the right hand side here we see 2 parts. One is the browser here on the files. If we make some plots, we go here to see the plots. Some packages that are available to install, some libraries. You can imagine that these are all libraries. The help, if we need a help for a package or a function, we will get it here. And this viewer and presentation, I don't really know what they are. We will see during the class. Okay, files is the default view here. Now if we make a variable, we see here on the environment that we see that we have a variable a, and this variable has a value of 1. So in the environment, which is a global environment here, we see all the variables that we generate. This can be scalars, like they say, or they can be vectors, or they can be data matrices, they can be data frames, as we will see, lists, and so on. R also has functions and functions also defined as variables. For example, function x is a function that takes two values, a and b, and returns the sum. So it tells us here that x is a function with two arguments, and so on. So everything that is stored in the memory, we can see that here. Now, of course, we can use the console for very simple things, like finding the log of 0.001. But since we need to write some code, it's better not to use the console, because things are not stored here just for really checking things very fast. We need an editor to write the code. Okay, and to open an editor, I will go here and I will ask. So here on the left hand side there is this plus symbol. It's very tiny, everything, so you cannot see it very well, but I can click on this plus and then go for a new R script, or press Ctrl Shift and then a new R script will open here. And now this left part is split in two sections. The upper section is the editor and the bottom section is the console that we had before. Now we can write here our code without executing it yet. And then, so I haven't executed anything yet, but R allows us to execute lines in any order that we want, and we can execute the code line by line. So if I am here in any position of the line, I can press Ctrl Enter and then line will be executed. And when I press Ctrl Enter here, I see that this line goes to the console and is executed. Now here on the environment I have A and X that I had before. I hadn't cleared the environment, and actually if I clear it, go again here, now the A has a value of 2 and the B has a value of 3. And in this for loop that I will explain in a later class, what I do is that I add the value 1 to the A, and I do that for 10 times. So if I start from 2, then I will finish with the value 12 on A. Should be 12. So you see here that I have an additional variable I, because I used I in the for loop, and this has a value 10 and it's an integer. And now the value A has the value of 12. It was 2 before and now it's 12. Just to demonstrate the usage of plots, if I have the values of A here, if I have some X values here, which is from 1 to 10, and some Y values from 21, 30, you see here I execute the code. Now X is a vector of integers. I see that here. Y is a vector of integers. I see that here. Don't worry, because I haven't explained yet how to generate vectors and so on. We will see that later on. I just want to demonstrate the visualization of plots here. So if I will do something like plot xy, then I see the plot here. The x values here and the y values here. I can export this plot as a PDF or as a PNG, or I can copy it to the clipboard and use it in some presentation and so on. I can zoom in. This will open in a bigger window. I can even publish it, and this is a very nice feature of RStudio, because you can publish directly your code and your plots and everything in RPubs. I will demonstrate that in another class where we will write some markdown here, because it's not installed yet. So since I mentioned that, I want to say that we can open several things. We can develop code for several things in RStudio, not only R. So I see here Quarto document that I have no clue what it is, R notebook, R markdown. This will be very useful for your exercises. You can write an exercise in R markdown and submit simultaneously text and code here. You can use a web R application, which is a shiny thing. You can even write C++, Python, SQL, and so on. RStudio is a very powerful IDE. It's a very nice thing to write code. RStudio has several features here. It has the autocomplete function, so if I have a strange variable called long name variable equals 1, then if I want to make a variable y equals a long name variable, I don't have to type all of it. RStudio will help us with autocomplete. So now I can press, I guess, tab +2, and I don't need to type so much. Also, it has some help for functions. So here, plot, pops up a small window here. XY, okay, plot is a very general function. Let me see if I find some other one. Log, for example, it says that you can provide the x, which is a value 10, and then the base, which can be, for example, number 10 here. So the logarithm of the number 10 with base 10 equals to 1, and the log of 2 with base 2 should be 1 as well. Okay, and since we said a few things about how RStudio helps us with functions and everything, with autocomplete and pop-up windows, we'll say a few things about the help in RStudio. So to get help, perhaps I must go to the RStudio server here, because I can zoom in. Yeah, I think this is better. Okay, now I was here in my RStudio Desktop, but I will move to RStudio server. I have, so we can use the cloud. Okay, I will use the cloud here. RScript. Let's see how help works here in this cloud version. Let's say that I need to get help for the log function, because I don't know exactly what it is. If I use a question mark and log, then the help will appear here, and you see that I was in files and now I'm in help, and it says that log, base, logarithms, and exponential. The log function computes logarithm by default, natural logarithms. Log 10 computes the common, base 10 logarithms, and log 2 computes binary logarithms, and so on. But then in the usage you have different examples, and then you see here that you have two arguments. One argument is the numeric value or a vector that you want to use, and then there's a base. You use a positive or complex number, the base with respect to which logarithms are computed. Default is the value of e, which is exp of 1. and so on. So question mark and the name of the function, if you know the function, will bring you the help here. If you don't know the function but you know something, you know a keyword, you can use the help.search. You see the autocomplete, how it works? And then I want to search for the term logarithm. Oops, sorry. I shouldn't press enter, but just control enter here. Then it will search on the help pages and it will bring up two things. One is from the library base, which is already pre-installed, the log function, and from the library NLME, the logdet function, whatever it is, it's the logarithm of the determinant of matrices. Okay, so now I figure out that I want the help for this, and then we see the help that we saw previously. Again, the shortcuts. If I want to execute a line, control enter, or I have the cursor anywhere on the line and I go here and run the current line or selection. So I can run a single line, control enter, control enter, control enter, or just select all of them and press control enter and they will be executed, or select all of them and use this button here. So these are for the introductory things for RStudio, and I think you are ready to use it.